Hey YouTube, it's Faye, and for today's video, we are back with part 2 of the Mk4 Supra build series, which still has yet to get a good creative name, but the spark has not come to me yet, so it's very generic. It's a Mk4 Supra build, people, that's all it is. For today's video, I'm actually gonna be getting a TIG welding lesson from Danny. Gotta give the customer a professional level, but I'm gonna be learning on this build, so really excited about that. Once I figure out this piping and then obviously the location of the power steering reservoir, that sort of wraps up everything that I need for this round of the mock-up. So I'm gonna pull everything back off and I'm gonna tuck my wires. And so that includes pulling out all these wires that I'm not going to use anymore. It also includes replacing some of these connectors that are broken and the pins that are just disintegrated in there, clean everything up, and then I'll do the final install of these components. So now I better get to cutting my pipes so I can get my TIG welding lesson from Danny, because the sooner I get those pipes fabricated, the sooner I can pull everything back out, and then I can get to running my wires.
A good general rule of thumb is pick the tungsten about the thickness of whatever you're welding. So here, we're pretty good. The tungsten tip, the way it's shaped, it does make a difference. The point you want to do for steel. And then for aluminum, you want a nice round ball. You're also going to have to get you a stone, and that stone can only be used for your tungsten. If you use that stone to sharpen a knife or do something else, you're going to contaminate your stone. A lot of people have struggles with aluminum, and the main thing is contamination. Put some tape, it's okay. It's gonna burn, yeah, it's gonna burn. Or I can sit here and be frustrated because I can't figure it out, right?
Yep. So
tape it up, and then when you're, after it's tacked, pull the tape off. Put a dot, one little dot there, then you can grab the pipe and you can give it a twist. So we can finagle it wherever we need to go, but we wanna make sure our alignment is right first. As soon as I hit the pedal, the high frequency starts and keeps the arc. I'm kind of just,
it's cloudy, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going back and forth equally on both pieces. Starting to get shiny.
It's fun, actually. You saw it, right? You saw it?
Yes.
I wait until the two go from the dull gray to super shiny.
Yes.
And then if you get too far, it gets back dull gray again because you burn it.
Wow, Danny, your first time welding with
an inverter type.
Little teeny
Mine has a transformer.
Yeah.
Big transformer, it makes a different noise. This is a different sound. I shouldn't say noise because it's actually quite pleasant.
When Danny was teaching me TIG welding, I recorded his lesson and made myself a video so that I could play it back and remember everything that he said. I did want to include some of the highlights here just so I didn't rob y'all of some of the learning experience as well. Now, please note that Danny has a really nice commercial grade welder, but he taught me on my little Lincoln so that I would be able to use it and set it up seamlessly back in my home shop. Also, the reason that I wanted to learn TIG welding now is so that I can fab these pipes for the Mk4 right there when the car is in front of me, and I can test fit everything right on the car before finalizing the shape and then bringing them to Danny to weld together. All right, you guys, I have successfully well, there are varying degrees of success, okay? But I have joined these two pieces of metal together and there are no holes. So this could function. This could function. This could be a working piece if I needed it to be. And that is saying a lot for my first aluminum TIG welding project, okay? Danny just set me loose on this one and this is what we came up with, and it's okay. So now I'm actually going to the real pipe. So we'll see how this turns out. My second ever aluminum welding project. This is the side that no one's gonna see. And so far, I'm gonna say we're doing great. And now Danny's gonna save the day. Someone on Instagram, after I posted my picture, said, a little sanding, a little paint, turned me into the welder I ain't. Danny welded the flange onto the pipe since it was going to be a little more challenging because of the angle, and the two materials were also slightly different thicknesses. He's pulling the tungsten out a little bit because we got this really tricky spot right here. Let's see the torch in there. Let me see. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a crappy angle.
Yeah, so just for a little bit right there, we're going to try to pull the tungsten out just a hair and let's see what it can do. When you get into different areas, there's more heat. I should have probably just slowed down and cranked up the amperage a little more.
Okay.
But I just waited and let the heat build up.
It's definitely a patience game.
Yes.
After securing the flange, Danny also went back over my welds and made everything look absolutely beautiful. And even though this pipe will be living behind the bumper cover and will never be seen, I'm not charging the customer for the items that I'm still learning on, and I still want the final result to look good, and obviously, Danny did not disappoint. All right, so clearly I have a lot to learn, but that's okay. That's exciting. I mean, I can only go up from here. So I'm gonna set up my welder, I'm gonna set up my cutting supplies, and let's get this pipe fitted. Seriously, look how perfect that is. Now that I have the pipe from the intercooler to the hole in the engine bay done, it's time to fabricate the pipe from the hole to the throttle body. Since Danny held my hand through the first one and I was able to go through all the steps with success, I felt much better about my ability to tackle pipe number 2 on my own. And once I get this all done and mocked up, I can send these pipes off to Poor Man Mods to get powder coated, and I can get back to tucking the wire harness. Since moving the welder back to my shop and having to reset everything up, I started out on a test scrap piece before moving to tacking the customer's piece. Alrighty, not bad. Nice little tack bead laid down with success, so let's move on to the main event. I was feeling good, feeling great, feeling like $1 million, and boom. Well, shoot. I mean, I think with the tape and my attempt at a tack, maybe Danny will be able to work with this. I tripped the circuit breaker, obviously, and I had no idea where the circuit breaker box is. I'm a tenant here. I wandered aimlessly all over the property trying to find it. I was not gonna call my landlord. It's 10 o'clock at night. So actually Brandon had been here before, and I've tripped the circuit breaker before with something else, actually trying to use the lift and the air conditioner and something else all at once. So he knew, so I had to call him, and we ended up having to go into the other shop to flip it back. It was a big production. So I don't want to have to do that again. I'm gonna see if Danny can work with this, but I'm gonna have to figure something out. It's Saturday night, I'm leaving Monday morning. I'm probably not gonna be able to find an electrician to come down here, and I've got to pack tomorrow to go to Supra's in Vegas. I can't just hang out and wait for an electrician. So I think this is where we end. This is disappointing. I'm sorry to let you down. Well, I left my pathetic attempt at pipe number 2 with Danny, who enthusiastically applauded my attempt at attack while I brought my Mark III Supra to Supra's in Vegas. The whole event itself was a total flop this year, but I still really enjoyed the car show and got a lot of inspiration for the Mark IV build and took dozens of photos. If you're interested, I do have the full vlog video from my trip to Vegas up here on my channel, and I'll link that right now. But by the end of the trip, I was very excited just to get home and back to normal life and get back into the shop, and then have only another month to prepare one of my other builds for the SEMA show, which is also in Vegas, and also seems to have a plethora of Supra builds on display. For this SEMA though, I actually ended up bringing Brandon's Tacoma, which we had in the Power Stop Brakes booth. And now we're back. All right, so I just got back from Supra's in Vegas, and here I am at Hill Country Performance and Machine, picking up the other charge pipe for the Mark IV Supra. And check this out. You already recognize this guy. Oh my God. Danny is the man. Of course he made this pipe absolutely perfect with just that one lame tack on there. Oh, heck yes. I love how that looks. Obviously, another hose clamp needs to go here, but this is just, proof of concept. I'm going to pull everything back apart, and I'm also going to widen this hole a little bit just to give a little bit of room for engine movement. Obviously, better too small. We can always cut it larger. It's a little bit more challenging to put material back there. So, I am loving this. All right, this side is complete. One thing I did notice while I was at Supra's in Vegas was that this is actually a very popular manifold. This is my first time actually using this, or installing this on someone else's car, so we'll see. But remember I was mentioning the finish and how I want to bring everything together. Well, this
finish actually isn't great.
On every single one of the different vehicles that I saw rocking that intake manifold, the color had completely faded, like based on how much UV exposure it had had. So the longer it was on the engine and the more car shows with the hood popped it went to, the more it turned from black to copper. So I'm gonna pull that off and we're gonna paint that gloss black. But anyway, I'm gonna remove all this stuff anyway on this side because, like I said, time to tuck the wires and run my wiring harness. Now, thankfully, on the other side, especially after showing the customer so many amazing pictures of engine bays from Supras in Vegas, I convinced him that actually we're not gonna use this pipe at all. This one here, that, I mean, it was sort of like a temporary thing. And I convinced him, hey, just let me take the turbo apart and we'll just stick a pipe in there. Let's just do it once, do it right, and let's just run that one directly, not make it, you know, a million years long to just fit what's already there. Let's not make it work, let's just do it. So, I'm going to be taking the turbo apart as well and fabricating yet another pipe, which means that today I'm also going to call an electrician and see what I can do about getting some power back here so I can actually do some welding. And that is what I'm gonna do today.
Phenomenal. So I called the electrician and booked an appointment. And in the meantime, I removed the intake manifold and got back to work on the wire harness. I'm also still waiting on a few missing electronics from the customer, not quite sure what those are going to be. So once I see what's missing, I'll be able to map out exactly what we're working with in terms of engine management.
I very carefully, very gently cut all of the tape that bundled the wire harness together and removed that plastic piece without breaking any tabs, because I'm going to use it. I mean, that Toyota designed that brilliantly like that for a reason, to hold all the wires at a place. And I'm going to keep on using that. And my hope is that I will create enough space in the plastic there to be able to snake my new power wire for the fuse box. I know this is a very thick wire, dare to dream, but at the very least, I want to bundle this with the rest of the wires and at least tuck it underneath out of sight.
Oh my goodness. I hate this. I hate that someone did this. This is really hard to replace this piece, obviously, because I'd have to de-pin the entire harness to get this on. And the problem with making cuts like this is it keeps on ripping when you shove stuff in there. But like, the damage has been done. What am I gonna do, right? Glue it back together? I mean, I guess I could. I'm also really not stoked on all these junctions. Let's see if I can just replace this whole thing. Okay, that is like pinched up in there. I'm gonna guess that's why the boost pressure gauge wasn't working. That is totally pinched. I think someone took something out and put it back. Dear Lord, that's not reading anything. Okay, I got some of this on order, so we'll come back to this. In the meantime, I'm just gonna run this power wire down into the cabin and see what it looks like. And you can also see that I pulled out a good portion of the interior already. So this is gonna come out, around and across with the flow of the natural wire harness underneath the new forward-facing intake manifold, and then it's going to come across with this wire harness, which I need to modify because obviously this is for, you know, the battery, which is no longer here, and up to this little post.
Heck yeah, well hopefully that is something you'll be looking forward to in a future video. You may notice some wiring cables moving around throughout the rest of this video because I'm just trying to sort some stuff out, but once I have everything set, I'm gonna make one whole video, like a whole section of the series that is just dedicated to all of the larger wires and then moving the battery to the trunk, so that's kind of organized. But in the meantime, while I have everything out and exposed, we've got an oil leak to attend to, and in about half an hour my vacuum hose should show up. So we've got a couple other things to address today.
Now, because I'm a spaz and I can't do anything in like a nice linear sensical way, I'm just seeing that I've got a ton of room right now, and this has an oil leak. This is the oil cooler right here. Now, this is one of only a couple oil leaks on this entire engine. Unfortunately, the worst oil leak is the pan, and that's just something that you can't really do until you take the engine out. Drift Motion sells this kit that includes all the OEM gaskets and seals, so I'm gonna pull off that oil filter.
You can also see that I have my little diverter funnel to direct the oil down off of the subframe and into the drain bucket below. I've also already drained the engine coolant, so now I'm removing these two coolant hoses that run in and out of the oil cooler housing. Awesome that my arm got in the way of the shot here, but what can I say? I do all my own filming, so it's hard to know
when I mess up until it's too late sometimes, but you get the idea. Removing both these hoses is the same. I'm using my 90-degree pliers and my hose pliers to get these off. So you can see that there is a nut there on the inside of the oil cooler. We're gonna loosen that. This is a 30mm socket. The 30mm nut is actually integrated into the relief valve, so it's not an easy replacement if you strip it. Make sure you're removing this carefully and not allowing your socket to slip. Pulling this off, we can easily identify the first seal we need to replace. But there's another O-ring that's slightly hidden and often overlooked. See down in there where the relief valve sits, you can see a flat O-ring. Let's pull that out with a 90-degree pick and get that replaced. Lube up our new O-ring with engine oil prior to installation, and let's also replace this plate washer on the oil control valve. This is technically a reusable part, but a new one comes in the drift motion kit, so why not? Now before we reinstall the relief valve, I like to give the spring a little check and make sure it isn't stuck in there. I do this gently with a screwdriver and just make sure the spring pressure feels good and that it is in fact moving freely. Lastly, let's install the upper seal that is usually the culprit of this leak. It has a flat section that sits underneath the tabs on the cooler, and I'd like to lube it up with sticky assembly lube for reinstallation to help it stay in place. There's the final look, and this is how the seal should sit. Now there is one more O-ring in the kit, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure what this one is for. I always assumed it was for the oil filter, but it actually doesn't seem to fit the filter I normally use on 2Js. I consulted the manual and didn't find another non-reusable part that I was missing, so I'm not sure. Let's pretend it's for the oil filter and let's move on. Be sure to clean off the sealing surface prior to reinstallation of the oil cooler. I like to stick a mirror in there to give it a good visual inspection. Now, screw in the oil control valve by hand, and the formed coolant hoses do get in the way a little bit, so once I have several threads, I'll install them just to get them out of my way. Now we're gonna hand torque the 30mm nut to 58 foot-pounds. Then, reinstalling my hose clamps, trying to line them up with the witness marks on the hoses.
All right, so here's the filter that was on there. Just fine, Mobile One. If you look this up, this used to be a G1 filter. Toyota doesn't make them anymore. So I use a D1 filter. And if you want to go even bigger, the D3 is the same thread pitch, it's just a little longer. There you can see the height difference. So the difference in filtration capacity. Again, the factory oil filter was a YZC G1, discontinued. So Toyota will tell you to use a D1. It's the same size as the G1, same thread pitch, and this one is the D3. So let's see if we can fit it. Why wouldn't we use this, right? Comes pre-lubed on the O-ring, gotta love it. Oh my gosh, we got plenty of room. We totally fit. Why wouldn't you use this filter? And then we're gonna mark the date. We have hose. So on that forward-facing intake manifold, on the bottom side of it, it's got a bunch of little threaded holes for, vacuum ports. So I'll be able to plumb this line that's gonna go inside the vehicle to that gauge pod on the A-pillar, and it's gonna be nice and close, so I can run it right from here to like right back there. One thing I noticed is we've got this old power wire that went to the battery for the sound system. And I'm obviously not gonna be using this anymore, but it already runs through this nice little hole in the firewall. So I'm gonna use this and tape these together and use this to help me get this vacuum hose easily through this hole that's already present in the vehicle.
No way, that worked out nicely.
All right, hope this works.
There it is. Nice. Now I'm going to attach it to this hose so I can just easily fish it up through this hole. Heck yeah. And we've got it plugged back in. Phenomenal. But I'm not gonna put this back just yet because we're gonna wire in the lights as well. So it'll actually light up. And I think we inadvertently solved one of the problems, but we shall see. I'll actually test that. I'll show you how to test that later. And this vacuum hose, I want to route it nicely, and it's going to terminate somewhere up in here. I'm just going to clip it and label it for now. This stuff is cheap enough that I can just leave a lot of slack, and I've also got a lot of slack inside the car as well. So I have zero problems wasting. There's no waste. I'll use any excess for something else. Alrighty, get this out of the way. There we go. So I'm just going to tuck it up out of the way for now and move on to another project, but now it'll be ready for me.
All right, I think that's where I'm going to end this video for today. I have jam-packed a lot of stuff into this one video. A lot of time has passed, and there's also been a lot of other things that have sort of happened behind the scenes and have already happened. As you can see from what is going on behind me, I am already well into part 3 of this video, which I will be releasing next week. So stay tuned for that. You can see like a little bit of foreshadowing, but at the time that I'm releasing this video, it'll be after Christmas. I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday week, and I am actually going to be a good person and shut down the shop early today because I did promise Brandon that I would go with him to look at Christmas lights and I would take him in the Mark III. So we're gonna do that. It's gonna be amazing. Also, another update, the electrician has come and gone, and he did report back that I would have to spend thousands of dollars rewiring this entire place in order to be able to weld back here on 110 power. So he will be back a little bit later, and the plan is to tap into the 220 for the lift. I'm obviously not gonna be using the lift and welding simultaneously, so that may be a good temporary solution for me as a tenant in the meantime. So yeah, so no welding in part 3, because I'm still sort of figuring that out, but I will get back to this side of the charge pipe upgrade in part 4. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again in the new year. All right, thanks for watching, bye.
And now for the most important part of the entire video.
Hi, littles. Hi, Fern. Hi, sweetie. Hi, Delilah. Hi, Abby. We're gonna let the littles run around and play for a little bit. Hi, Fern. Hi, sweetie. Hi, cutie patootie. What am I going to go? Whoa! That was intense, Abby. Yes. I love it when Fern does these. She's so cute. She's so fluffy. Yes, Abby.